While the Battle Network games have a ton of recurring characters, few show up as often as Mr. Match, outside of Lan's immediate circle of friends. The guy appears in 5 out of the 6 entries, and even pops back up in a few of the spin-offs. It does kinda make you wonder, what's so special about Mr. Match, aka Kenichi Hino, or Hinoken for short? Why not give his major appearances a look and see if we can get an idea of what makes him tick? I'm Wes the Explosion, and this week we're talking about Mr. Match, Battle Network's hardest working villain. In Battle Network 1, Mr. Match and Fireman have the distinct honor of being the series' first boss. Unless, of course, you happen to do the optional fight against Gutsman beforehand. The hot gossip on the streets is that several ovens have been malfunctioning and causing house fires, all of this being attributed to the evil organization, WWW, that's on the rise. That's when we first meet Mr. Match, who poses as a repairman, going around to checking on home computer networks for viruses that he claims are what's causing the incidents. Lan's mom lets him in, and after giving the kid a brief explanation, tells him to go to his room so that he won't be in Match's way. This is also where we get all the jokes about Match doing your mom, a la that adult film trope of the lonely married woman imposing on the hired help. That one's even more cliche than the stepsister getting trapped in the washing machine, which I still don't understand the logistics of, and I refuse to look it up. While I think Lan's mother is too classy a gal for adultery, I do have to admit that his father is not home very often, and Match is a pretty damn attractive man. He has those fiery red locks while somehow pulling off the pointed goatee. If you ever see him without a shirt or just wearing one that's a bit more tight-fitting, you can also notice that he's pretty solidly built too. Maybe it's just the fire element trope, just look at Flannery from Pokemon, but Match is kind of a hottie. Anyway, soon after he leaves, the oven catches fire, the very thing he was there to prevent. What a very odd coincidence. You plug Mega Man into the network and he sets out to quell the viruses and put out the fire. About halfway through the stage, he gets hit with a barrage of flames, knocking him out, and Lan receives a phone call from Match, who reveals that he and his Navi are behind the incidents as part of the WWW. While there's really no reason for him to tell Lan all this, he seems to revel in his destructive handiwork and says that, much like Mega Man, Lan can't escape, meaning that he probably aims to have Lan die in the fire. Pretty extreme against an 11-year-old. Lan manages to help Mega Man by putting out the worst of the real-world fire with a water gun, which in turn make the ones in the net less intense, and the pair then take on Fireman. There's the typical villain bluster from Match, but he's left in disbelief when the pair manages to win. He lets slip that he still managed to get what he came for, a special program that just happened to be in Lan's oven. Maybe there was a safer place for his dad to put that. Match was likely disguising himself to hide WWW's plans while simultaneously causing terror, so with him telling Lan as much as he did, he also made a bit of an oopsie. Anyway, Match shows up once or twice after that, in the WWW base between chapters, mostly to offer the weak excuse that him and some of the other members keep failing because Lan and Mega Man are just too strong, though he soon disappears and isn't there for the finale. Whether he quit, was kicked out, or just out running errands, who knows, but don't worry, that's not the last we see of him. In Network Transmission, Fireman reprises his role, being the first boss after burning a large area of the net. Once you take him down, Match pops in to bemoan his Navi's defeat, but claims that he's innocent. Fireman just went out of control after he installed the anti-zero virus program, and surprisingly, this turns out to be true. Even stranger, though, is the fact that Mr. Match doesn't seem to be in jail. While this isn't the only WWW net-up confirmed to still be out in this game, in several later titles, they make it clear that many of the villains wind up in custody after you stop their plans, from Count Zapp, to Gauss, to Blackbeard, to name only a few. This is not just one of those game worlds where the bad guys never see any punishment for their actions, other than some embarrassment at losing to a kid. In Match's case, you could say that since he carried out his role under a disguise known only to Lan, a child who doesn't run his mouth as much as you might expect, and he seems to have left the WWW before the final raid on its base, he could have managed to evade prosecution in this case, but we are going to discuss this again, so don't forget about it. He's pretty benign in Battle Network 2. You find him in an airport lobby, just kinda hanging around. When you talk to him, he asks Lan if he recognizes him and seems a little offended if you say no or just don't respond quick enough. Pretty casual for someone who you should probably consider a mortal foe, but whatever. He then challenges Lan to an optional fight with Heatman, his new Navi, and if you manage to win, he seems pretty amused, calling Lan a scamp, giving him a reward, and just acting oddly friendly towards the kid, which seems kinda weird, but hey, it's a positive experience, so I'll take it. Not so much with Battle Network 3. You meet him about halfway through the game in Scilab. He claims that he's cleaned up his act and got a job there so that he could make the world a better place or what have you. While Lan's suspicious of him at first, when him and Mega Man face some WWW Navis causing trouble and they gang up on him, Mr. Match swoops in with Flame Man to save the day. All the while, the baddies make a big deal about how Match is a traitor, and Lan completely trusts him. Even when a strange Navi warns him not to do so, him and Mega Man agree that this new guy is more suspicious. Match soon calls in the favor and asks Lan to help him install some data in Scilab Mr. Prog's, using both the fact that he just saved Mega Man and that Lan's previous success in the game has given him a big head to guilt him into assisting him. Once they finish, Match gives Lan a chip so that they'll be even, which Lan is reluctant to take, but he's once again pressured into it. Not long after that, all the machines in Scilab start overheating, making the facility dangerously hot. Lan's dad stays behind to try and save the important data. When Lan shows up to help, he's blocked from entering and Mr. Match calls him to tell him that the data he installed is responsible. He says that Lan's to blame for what's happening and that puts them on the same level. While Lan's still reeling from his accusations, Match invites him to play a game. Put out all the fires that Flame Man starting around the net and he'll put Scilab back to normal. Thus, Mega Man starts running all over the place and every time he manages to clear an area, Match calls to taunt them. Once they're done, Match ups his cruelty, showing Lan a live feed of Scilab where his father has collapsed from the heat and tells him that they'll settle things in the undernet. Naturally, they battle, but they're interrupted by Bass, who wants to fight Mega Man, so he one-shots Flame Man to get him out of the way. Honestly, I'm not entirely sure what happens with all this. Did Scilab actually give Match a job? Did they just not do a thorough background check? Or did he infiltrate Scilab with a stolen uniform? And did he really need Lan to install his bugged data, or did he merely pass the job on to him in order to cause trauma? On one hand, as the son of the head scientist, Lan likely would have access to things that Match wouldn't. On the other, Match did manage to get into Dr. Hikari's lab on his own, so he should have had at least some credentials. Whether tricking Lan was necessary or not, it certainly really messed with the kid, and this probably is the cruelest thing that Match does in the series. Which is saying something since he previously tried to murder Lan, Mega Man, and Mrs. Hikari. And while it was dumb of Lan to trust Match, at the same time, whether he was officially hired or just managed to sneak around, I blame this more on Scilab's security than Lan. As far as he knew, Match was supposed to be there and had the facility's stamp of approval. Anyway, that's not the last we see of Match. Lan fights him again in Wily's lair, where him and Flame Man are paired up with Anetta and Plant Man. Before the battle, they perform full synchro, which lets Anetta and Navi fuse consciousness, and because of "you die in the game, you die for real" logic, when Mega Man wins, Match almost dies and remains unconscious for the rest of the chapter. When Lan and Mega Man defeat Wily, the island sinks and law enforcement have to come rescue him and the other WWW operatives. So, surely he should be captured this time, right? In Battle Network 4, Mr. Match shows up a total of 3 times. Okay, so much for him being sent to prison, I guess. How does he keep getting away with it? Also, he's back to using Fireman in this one. Heat and Flame didn't seem to be replacements. Rather than some drab uniform for disguise, this might be the first time we see Match in his personal duds. No, wait, there was that boring outfit in 2. Here, though, he has a spiffy red jacket and black pants with flame patterns rising up from the ankles to just below knee height. A little much? Yes. Do I think it looks cool? Also yes. Dude is all about fire, it's his brand, and he owns it, taking the theme to its extreme. Even Lan acknowledges this, when he's paired up with Burner Man in the second tournament, saying that fire navis make him think of one person, in reference to Match. Match himself shows up to see if the NetOp-Navi duo is worthy of the heat element. Said NetOp, Atsuki, arrives, the two talk smack on each other, and despite his accomplishments, Match doesn't approve and challenges him to a net battle. While Lan initially considers this not his problem, electronics soon start overheating due to their match, and he sends Mega Man in to once again put out the flames. After a lot of running around, Mega Man finds Burner Man and Fireman, the former willing to miss their official match in order to show off the latter. Lan plays the only card he has, saying that since they previously beat Fireman, that by beating Mega Man, he can prove his superiority over both of them at once. While this angers Match, he soon calms down and tells Lan that they better not lose, and when they do win, he's only too happy to mock Akatsuki, despite the fact that that really only puts them on the same level. Oh well, I'll let him have it. Even more interesting though is what happens if you play Red Sun and get Match and Fireman as one of your fights in the first tournament. While this technically should happen first, because of the stupid way the game is set up, it's more likely to happen after the Burner Man story, plus, you gotta save the good stuff, right? After a bit of back and forth between the two, Lan goes out for some food and meets the person who will change the course of Mr. Match's life, Hot Dog Girl. Despite how important she is, she's never given a name, so that's what we'll be calling her. Do not question it. Anyway, Lan orders a hot dog. Match does the same, and it's revealed that Match helped her out previously. It's an interesting little exchange, with Hot Dog Girl acting coquettish around Match and even drawing attention to his and Lan's odd relationship, where they seem close despite for all intents and purposes hating each other. Some racketeers show up, demanding money, but Match tells them off and they relent after whispering about him being the boss. He soon meanders off himself, and Hot Dog Girl's grill starts acting up after she lets a few burn due to her being distracted by her conversation with Match. Lan goes in and deletes some viruses, but that doesn't fix things, so he sets off to find Match, hoping he can help. Mega Man catches Fireman just as he's wrapping up a meeting with two heel navies, where he reiterates to stay away from the hot dog stand, and Mega Man tells Fireman the situation. Back at the stand, Match explains that the viruses they deleted were placed there by him to improve the grill's function, and while Lan tries to weakly argue the dangers of using viruses, Hot Dog Girl takes Match's side, because of course she does. We can all see what's going on here. Both net-ups head off for their tournament battle, though not before Lan mentions that they're participating, and then begins Match's latest evil plot. Him and his cronies, ex-WWW members, mean to revive the group and have planted bombs throughout the venue, effectively holding the audience hostage. Pretty ambitious for Match, who always worked under Wily's leadership. When he finds out that Hot Dog Girl is in attendance though, he tries to call off the plan. His henchmen mutiny and go through with it anyway, saying that the only way out of the situation is if one person goes around and disarms the bomb, though if anyone else tries to interfere, they'll detonate the whole place. That makes it seem like they didn't have a specific goal in mind starting out, other than pure terrorism. Match knows that he won't be allowed to leave his spot, so he enlists Lan for help and gives him the rundown of the situation. After a final round of bomb defusal simulator, Match prepares to be taken into custody. Lan's the only one who knows what he did though, and despite all that Match has put him through, all the time he's put him and his family in danger, and all the trauma he's caused him, he decides that Match's abandonment of his plan all for the sake of another person, and his help in solving the situation, speaks louder than all of that and refuses to turn him in. A very questionable decision, but one that won't bite him in the butt this time. The two have their tournament battle, Mega Man wins, and you get Fire Soul. Match then heads off to deal with his former underlings, but Hot Dog Girl stops him. She tries to confess her feelings, but he cuts her off, saying that it wouldn't work out. While I think it's clear that she likes him, his angle is left a little more ambiguous. I imagine she was having trouble with her grill, and on a whim, Mr. Match helped her by installing the initial batch of heat viruses to get it running again, seeing it as a chance to show off his skill and passion for flames. While I imagine that her infatuation with him led to him eventually catching feelings himself, there's also a chance that her admiration just led to him feeling the pressure to not let down her expectations. Heck, I can see no reason why both couldn't be true. Still, while this is the last we'll see of Hot Dog Girl, which is incredibly disappointing, it's undeniable that this had a profound effect on Match, and this is probably the only storyline in 4 that I consider actually good. And hey, now that I've summarized it, you don't have to suffer through the rest to see it. Match pops up one more time at the end of Red Sun when Mega Man is struggling in space to change the course of an asteroid. While everyone else panics at the impending disaster, Lan's friends chide them on giving up. Match appears to back them up and convinces everyone to cheer Mega Man on, so loud that it can be heard from the atmosphere. Cheesy as heck, but somewhat endearing, and the first hint that Match is beginning to change. Mr. Match doesn't show up in Battle Network 5, but in Cybeast Grega version of 6, he becomes a student teacher at Lan's new school. kinda makes me question the screening process. Anyway, he assures Lan that he's not up to anything nefarious, and he's not. He's just going to college, doing research papers, and telling kids how to use heat navies. While Lan's a little wary, he tests out Match's class, operates Heatman, and learns about crosses, the game's replacement for Double Souls, letting Mega Man fuse with other navies. Match and Heatman even help Lan out several times during the game beyond that. Huh. So what does all that tell us about Mr. Match? What makes him so unique? Well, looking at the Mega Man Battle Network Complete Works, it's mentioned that, since the majority of the cast were children, Mr. Match was there to let older players view that world through the eyes of an adult. I find it a little disturbing that the character we're supposed to associate with is such a deplorable person, but this does explain why he's in almost every game. He also has the unique trait of having multiple navies, only Mr. Famous coming to mind as someone with more. Fire, Heat, and Flame Man. Originally, I thought that maybe he replaced his navi between each game, since they failed or were deemed not hot enough, or maybe they were even all the same, just upgraded into a new form each time, which is kinda how Fire and Heat worked in the anime. The return of Fireman in 4 and Heatman in 6, though, seems to suggest that they're all a part of Team Match, and he just uses whichever he feels like when he wakes up in the morning. I'd be interested to know how they all get along. As for Mr. Match himself, he seems to be just the pyromaniac who wants to watch the world burn. Literally. Wily's goal seems to be the violent destruction of society, though how he recruits people was pretty vague in the first game. In Battle Network 3, though, his goal seems to be framed as destroy everything, then rebuild the world in the WWW's image, his underlings becoming top-ranked officials. Mr. Match, though, seems mostly interested in that first part, his schemes always involving intense fires, ranting about flames, and when you defeat him for the final time in 3, just mentioning that he regrets not being able to see the end of the world. If he did gain power through his actions, it almost seems like it'd be more of a nice bonus rather than a goal. More like the means justify the ends. Quite backwards. Even when he's not being malicious though, his passion for flames burns red hot. Him challenging Atsuki and Burner Man's worthiness to even have the title of Fire Navi, and his whole student-teacher curriculum centering around teaching others the joy of using the heat element. The man is obsessed. His fiery personality comes out in other ways as well. Him impulsively revealing his identity as a WWW operative, and letting slip some key information in order to taunt Lan in their first encounter. This sort of behavior continues when he tries to fry Scilab, constantly calling Lan to goad him, so he's a sadist as well. Looking to Lan specifically, the two have a very odd relationship. In their first encounter, Match probably sees him more as just collateral damage. Being defeated by a random kid, though, seems to have sparked an interest within Mr. Match, and when they meet again in 2, he's not only friendly, but seems quite fond of Lan as well. And while he's very malicious in 3, he does a few things beforehand that makes me raise an eyebrow. When he finally gets Lan to trust him, he says about how he's just glad that they're now friends, and when he tricks Lan into helping him, he rewards him with a decent chip, the Heat-type Lava stage, one that would be easy to associate with Match himself. With as manipulative as he is in this chapter, this could have just been another way to mess with Lan. The word friend adding more weight to the betrayal, and the chip to make it look like he's on WWW's payroll, but it makes me question whether there's not something deeper going on there, maybe subconsciously. And to circle around back, did he need to have Lan help him for his plans to succeed? Was he supposed to infiltrate Scilab slowly before burning it down, but then thought of a way to speed things up when he saw Lan? Was Lan a factor in the plan all along? Or could he have just made his move at any time, but then thought up a way to psychologically damage one of the biggest obstacles to WWW in the process? When calling to explain Lan's role in his attack, Mr. Match refers to him as one of us, so maybe he was looking to make Lan as twisted as he is. Match's background is never really explained, so whether he is the way he is due to some past traumatic event or was just born with a personality disorder is up in the air, but if it was the former, then maybe he really does want to forge some sort of weird connection with Lan, other than just being his nemesis. In 4, Hot Dog Girl mentions how Match and Lan seem close, which could be interpreted as a humorous misinterpretation of things, or a line put in intentionally by the writers to highlight how they see the two. Honestly, it's the sort of situation you'd expect more from an anime rom-com between two characters who appear to hate each other but are destined to wind up together. and when they meet again in 6 at Lan's school, Match says that he's like a little brother to him. While obviously a way to distract from how they really know each other and avoid bringing up his checkered past, it could also be a bit of a Freudian slip, Lan being someone that, in his own twisted way, he wants to look out for. After what Lan did for him previously though, a high level of gratitude is expected. Lan could have easily turned Match into the officials for plotting to hold the tournament venue in Battle Network 4 hostage, and after being put in danger by him 3 times, not to mention how badly he traumatized him in 3, no one would blame him. Heck, even if that were their first time meeting, it'd still be understandable if Lan wanted to turn him in as the ringleader of a terrorist group. That he trusts Match multiple times and lets him go during this pivotal moment, that really could be it for Match, says a lot about Lan's character. He's incredibly naive, and yet I can't hate him for it, though if Match didn't actually change this time, I might be singing a different tune. While Lan's incredibly forgiving, to the point of perhaps being irresponsible, he judges Match by his current actions, rather than his past, and surprisingly, it turns into a pretty big win for the kid. Like we've established, Mr. Match finally goes straight after his chapter in Battle Network 4, and like we've also established, it's due largely to his feelings for Hot Dog Girl. With her, he finally finds someone that he can't bring himself to hurt. Up until then, while seeming fond of Lan, he never held back against him when he was on the job. On the contrary, he seemed to go even harder. When his navies were temporarily deleted, he never acted too bothered, and even with his fellow WWW members, he never seemed to care too much. The one time he directly teamed up with one, Aneta had him accused of letting Flame Man almost burn Plant Man. Not really a team player. And yet, when it comes to Hot Dog Girl, he's completely unable to show any malice. Pours a little light on the writing, so we have no idea what their history is or what Match's feelings are exactly, but she's completely infatuated with him, and in her eyes, he can do no wrong. Her feelings not changing even after it's revealed what kind of guy he is. All this has an effect on him, which causes him to change. That's not to say that's the only reason. Lan's mercy, him burning bridges with the WWW, and discovering that they planned to betray him even if he didn't, probably all played a small part, yet Hot Dog Girl seems to be the primary reason. Why he doesn't show up in Battle Network 5 was likely due to him settling accounts with his past and getting started on his teaching license. It's actually kinda shocking that Heatman didn't show up on Team Proto Man, to be honest, and that just shows you how serious he was. He shows back up in 6, right after Lan turns in his detention assignment and his teacher comments that everyone makes mistakes, fittingly enough. Lan's suspicious of him, of course, and it wouldn't be surprising if players were as well. Typically bad things happen when he's around, and the intro boss is even a Heat Navi, so it fits the pattern. Yet he remains an ally for the whole game, not only giving you your first cross, but even loaning Lan Heatman at points when Mega Man isn't available, typically in very unfavorable circumstances. The first time, Heatman needs to stroll through a primarily aqua area to bring back some magic water. Not really his specialty. And the second, if you choose him over your other 4 allies, has him going up against the beasted out Mega Man, both times almost leading to his deletion. The pair come through in a major way and never seem to hold a grudge, despite how poorly things tend to go, though Heatman does point out that you have to be crazy to send him to track down some sacred water. Also worth noting is that the bad guys in 6 are once again the WWW, the group that Match has thrown his weight behind every time they show up. So if you need further proof that he's changed for good, I'd say that's it. And that, unfortunately, is also where his story concludes. Unlike Lan, who gets an ending tied up with a nice little bow, we don't know what happens to Match after that. That's the drawback to 6 being the final entry. I think there's a fair chance that he finishes up his degree, but whether he becomes an expert in his field, widely respected, or whether he reconnects with Hot Dog Girl once he feels his transformation is complete remains up in the air. And that kinda stinks, which feels like an odd thing for me to say. As someone who started with 3, I used to hate Mr. Match. With us parting ways with him in 6, it feels like he's leaving just when things were getting good. Who knows, he could have become one of Lan's closest friends and allies. If you chose Cybeast Gregar, he certainly got his foot in the door. At least he plays a pretty prominent role in the anime, though I kinda go back and forth with him there too. So that concludes our look at Mr. Match, Battle Network's hottest man, and his eventual redemption. Or is that too generous an interpretation? I may have read between the lines a bit too much at points and given the guy too much credit. I imagine a lot of people would consider him irredeemable, but that's what the comments section is for. What are your feelings on Mr. Match, and did I get him wrong? Honestly, a reply that says simply, "No, he's a bastard," would be understandable. This is also the first of this type of video I've done, and I'm second guessing some of the formatting and pacing, so any critiques on that are also welcome. But with that, I've said what I needed to say, so thanks as always for watching, and maybe consider subscribing if you're into Mega Man. Match Hot Dog Girl fanfic for everlasting peace.